James Carville, the longtime strategist for the Democratic Party, blasted Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman in an interview with Fox News over the weekend.
Fetterman has faced blowback from some of his fellow Democrats after siding with Republicans in voting to end the government shutdown. Kayleigh McEnany, the Fox News host and former Trump press secretary, had high praise for Fetterman, but Carville was quick to dismiss him. Take a look.
Can I tell you another huge mistake of your party? Not listening to Senator John Fetterman. That is the single smartest guy you have in your party. He doesn't hate. He says it like it is.
If John Fetterman is the smartest person in the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party is in really, really, really deep trouble.
Oh, wow.
Really deep trouble.
Hey,
John Fetterman,
we'll take Senator Fetterman over here.
Fetterman was one of 8 senators who broke ranks with his fellow Democrats to bring the longest shutdown in history to a close. Throughout the shutdown, he was one of the loudest and most prominent voices left of centre, arguing that the government needed to reopen.
He cited the need to ensure food security for those who rely on SNAP and the need to pay federal workers as his top reasons for voting with the GOP. When the vote was finally pushed through, he wrote on X, "After 40 days as a consistent voice against shutting our government down, I voted yes for the 15th time to reopen. I'm sorry to our military, SNAP recipients, government workers, and Capitol Police who haven't been paid in weeks. It should have never come to this. This was a failure."
Fetterman was also in the news last week when he was hospitalized after falling near his home. He announced on Saturday that he's made a full recovery and is back home from the hospital after receiving 20 stitches.
And I can confirm, because I happened to see him in this building prior to the fall, that he wears the shorts and hoodie thing even in our very intense late fall. Chilly temperatures. Yeah. I know you are not a fan of Fetterman, in particular his foreign policy views, which I don't subscribe to either. James Carville is, in some sense, you'd think James Carville would appreciate a Fetterman who's also a kind of plain-spoken, tell it like it is kind of guy, or at least that's the cultivated reputation over decades of savvy political work. And I would also think that maybe Carville would appreciate that Fetterman is, he's holding the seat for Democrats, if only very technically. And I don't know what the point of chasing him into the arms of the Fox News and the Republicans would be. You're just going to be, right now, it's kind of an unreliable but still Democratic position. It could just be an unreliable but mostly Republican, or it could be an entirely Republican position if you keep this up. So I don't know what the strategy is.
You know, I really...
Pennsylvania, my friend?
I don't know, well, maybe. I don't know that anybody needs to chase John Fetterman into the arms of Fox News and the Republicans. He seems to be running there of his own volition anyway. He's becoming increasingly someone who simply recites Fox News style talking points, not only about the shutdown, but this, Democrats are elitist, they're going too far to the left, etc., etc. He's someone, it's worth remembering that I think one of the reasons that there is such rancor toward Fetterman from the left is the way he presented himself when he was first running. He had been a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, admittedly way before he gained his current prominence. But there was this, I think, assumption that he encouraged that he was a progressive figure. And that has not proven to be the case at all. I do take your point that I'm slightly surprised that it's Carville making those criticisms of him, not only because of the sort of commonality of plain-spokenness and all of that, but because Carville is actually much more frequently a critic of the left, elevating not necessarily Fetterman, but people of that sort of Clintonite New Democrat, as it was once called, more moderate disposition. So, given my views of Fetterman, I was pleasantly surprised that James took the fight to him, but I was surprised.
Yeah, but is it a case of the perfect being the enemy of the good from the Democratic standpoint? Like, he is still, he votes with Democrats. He remains a socially liberal figure on abortion and accommodation, and he's very right on immigration and crime, and then his foreign policy views are so far right, they're actually not in the mainstream of either political party, frankly. They're idiosyncratic to him. But he's a labor guy. He supports a kind of protectionist agenda that is actually I would say is very well now in the middle of both parties to some degree. He's a unique political figure. He is not a reliable vote for Trump. He's rhetorically friendly with conservatives and Fox News now. One might think that would be a useful thing for Democrats to have one of those in there. Again, in a state the Democrats couldn't win with a more left-wing person in all likelihood.
Well,
they might not be able to win with any other Democrat.
Well, one might think that if one believed that Fetterman was acting in good faith, seeking new audiences or new media forums for democratic arguments. I think one of the reasons that there is such strong dislike of him among the left is the idea that he's not really acting in good faith. I mean, I don't see the left getting irate with Tim Kaine or Mark Warner, particularly, for example, neither of whom are about to join DSA anytime soon, right? But they are people who are of a more moderate disposition, but still clearly Democrats and still, broadly speaking, advocating for the Democratic Party writ large.
Yeah.
I think that the skepticism of Fetterman comes from the idea that he is essentially a self-promoter who got into the Senate under false pretenses and is then attacking the Democratic Party from within for his own advancement purposes.
Yeah, I guess the thing that's like this in Republican circles is that there'll be a lot of you take a Republican figure in a red state who runs as very MAGA, very Trumpy, very conservative, and then has some heterodoxy or is more moderate in something. Sometimes Brian Cox has gotten this accusation in Utah, and a couple other people. And then someone will say, well, why are you mad at this person who's like 97% conservative, but not mad at Susan Collins, who's only like 62% conservative? And well, the answer to that is, well, she's the last standing Republican in a blue state, and she doesn't owe you anything. She never said she was a Trump guy or arch conservative. She said she's a moderate, and she's come through in a lot of key votes, Kavanaugh and the others. And if she strategically votes against Republicans the rest of the time, so be it, because she doesn't owe anyone anything, and she never made any promises. And MAGA mostly makes their peace with that, and it's like, yeah, we don't. She's not one of us, but there's the best we can conceivably do there. So we hope she keeps at it for a very long time.
That's right, and I think the analogy with Collins, or the parallel with Collins, is actually a really valid one, because, as you say, Susan Collins has never pretended to be MAGA. I can't think exactly of what the equivalent to Fetterman and his shorts. Maybe if she's going around in a MAGA hat or something, then maybe there would be more objection to it. But Susan Collins is who she is. You can like that or not. It does enable her to get elected and win re-election as a Republican in Maine, one of the very few Republicans, not only in that state, but in that whole region. Fetterman, I think, is a different category to that. I think someone who is increasingly seen just as sort of trolling the Democratic Party and catering to critics of the party of which he is ostensibly a member.
All right, we've got a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.